Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 40 of Talkin Nets. And we have a very, very, very special episode for you all today. Not only because it's episode number 40, big Shawn Kemp's number. Shout out Kevin Durant wearing the Shawn Kemp jersey in his return to Seattle. Not only because half of the pre-COVID Nets are not going to be going to Orlando, but because we have the one, the only, Chris Shearn from the Yes Network joining us today, along with my co-host, Keith McPherson. Keith, how you doing today?
What's up, Hudson? What's up, Chris? I am good. I'm great. We are now on the second week of July. Teams have reported. We saw some baseball on Yes Network the last two nights, little inter-squad scrimmage. I enjoyed. It's feeling right, you know. It feels like we're getting back to some normalcy. We're getting back to what we all love. Basketball is on the way, and we're going to talk about it today.
That's the key. What you just said right there, Keith, is that normalcy. You know, we're starting to get sports back, and I think everybody needs some distraction from this pandemic that's going on, and just to get back to something normal. Seeing Miguel Andujar take Garrett Cole deep on the first pitch he sees, that was pretty cool. I know this is a Nets podcast, but you got that Savages shirt on, and
yeah,
Miggy showed last night that he had a little bit of savagery in him against Cole.
Yeah, I got that Yankee hat right here. We're a Nets podcast, but we're with John Boy Media. We're always rocking with the Yankees.
We're Yankees fans.
Yeah, we're Yankees fans.
Hudson is a Yankee fan. I'm obviously a Yankee fan. You're a Yankee fan. Somebody listening to this pod, multiple somebodies listening to this pod are also Yankees and Nets
born
fans.
Born and raised, absolutely.
Same.
Well, you're saying born and raised. Let's give the audience who doesn't know you as well as they should a little bit of background on yourself, Chris Shearn.
Sure. Wow. My journey started, boys, when the dynasty started in television back in 1996. That's graduated college, Rowan University down in Glassboro, New Jersey. That was in December of 95. And I always joke about this. I had to go out to Las Vegas to get a job in South Hackensack, New Jersey. When I was out in Las Vegas running a conference, I was one of 15 students picked from Rowan to go out there. It's just a big production. It's the National Association of Television Programmers and Engineers. They have all these booths. They have this huge floor. And when we get a break, we were basically interns with these red blazers. They were awful. But when we got a break, we got to go around to these different tables and meet different people in the business. And I was lucky enough to meet the people for Major League Baseball Productions. And that's where I broke in. I was a logger, basically. I was making $9.54 an hour, but I was doing it watching baseball. So it doesn't get too much better than that. That wasn't paying the bills. I had to pay the college loans back in full, and that took just a shade under 13 years. So, yeah. So it wasn't really cutting it, making $9.54 an hour, and I was icing donuts and also slicing bread at an A&P bakery in the morning. And I can't begin to tell you the reality that sets in when you go to college for 4.5 years, because I started at a community college, Middlesex County College, actually. But when you start there and you go for 4.5 years and you pour your heart into it, and you make the dean's list almost every semester, and then you're sitting there slicing rye bread when you want to be working in television, it's a little disconcerting. But you know, you work hard, you make contacts, and you keep moving. And then I started working for MSNBC in 1996. So I was there for 6 years on and off. And then as luck would have it, right after September 11th, I was doing the overnights at MSNBC, and I was there actually the day that happened as a tape producer. It was one of the worst days of my life. Found out later that night that one of my friends was in the North Tower and he died. So that was terrible. And then for 6 months after that, my job was basically watching them pull bodies out of the wreckage and logging it for the morning producers in the morning news. And then one of my friends who I used to work with at MSNBC started at Yes. And after Yes denied my first go round with my resume, this guy vouched for me, and because he knew how hard I worked, and he brought me over, and the rest is history, boys. I've been there since 2002.
Wow. Well, that is quite the story. And for me, myself, being a college student, being acutely aware of the student loans that I am compiling and hoping that I can pay off.
It's no picnic.
No, it is not. So I'm gonna do my best to follow in your example, make that dean's list for 4 years. But now I think we should flash forward to today and what you yourself and your role is with the Yes Network. And I also want you to talk a little bit about your podcast, because I know, you're a big podcast fan. I saw you talked about it with Ruco, a lot of big podcasters at the Yes Network. So if you could just talk a little bit about that, that would be great.
Yeah. My role there has evolved, guys. It's gone from basically I was just an associate producer on the Mike and the Mad Dog show when we were doing that show before we did Mike by himself, and obviously now the Michael K show. From 2002 to 2004, I was just in that capacity. I would count us back from break, and I just felt like I needed to do something more. Once you get your foot in the door, you can't be complacent. You can't just want to sit in the one spot that you're in. You want to continue to evolve. And before I got to Yes, it was 9 years of sending out VHS tapes all over the country and getting rejection letters. And luckily, all through high school, I was rejected left and right by the women I tried to ask out. So I was really, I was desensitized to all the rejection. So just making a little joke there. But, after those 9 years, I figured my on-air aspirations were by the wayside. And then Mike and Chris, the show that preceded them, I'm pretty sure it was Jody and Sid, if I'm not mistaken. I can't recall exactly who it was, but they would always go overtime. And we would end up sitting on a still of Mike and Chris's face that just said coming up. So I basically petitioned my boss. I said, look, I don't have to be on camera, but why don't I do just an update of our own to get us on clean when they come on at 105? So my boss, one of my bosses, Woody Fryman, said, put it on tape and send it to me and let me see if we could have you do this. So I did it. He approved it. And and he wanted me on camera. So I started doing it on camera. And I still have some of the early sports sprints that I did. At some point, I'm going to burn them because I never want to see those again. But yeah, it's been an evolution, man. Yes treats you like family. They really do. Throughout this pandemic, they've been fantastic. They've kept us up to speed with all the safety protocols and everything else. I've gone from just being an associate producer to doing the batting practice show. I did high school hockey. I did Yale on Yes football. I did Ivy League football and basketball, both in a play-by-play capacity and a sideline capacity. I'm doing play-by-play for the Liberty now, which is one of the most unbelievable opportunities that I've had in my career to this point. And last year, that first year was such a great time and such a great ride because you work with tremendous people at Yes, and it makes the games even better. Even though the Liberty didn't have a successful season last year, it was successful in the fact that we all came together, working together on those games, and we put out a really good product, and it made us all feel really good. But I've become the main host for the Nets pre and post game shows as well. I fill in for Bob Lorenz on the Yankees pre and post game shows, which I love. Baseball is, of course, my first love, but I love all sports, of course. Then I grew up a Knicks fan, and everybody knows that. Whoever listens to my podcast knows that I grew up a Knicks fan. But it's pretty much impossible to root against the Nets. The guys that they've put together and the culture that they've brought into Brooklyn, it just makes you want to root for that team. But the evolution of my career and the ebbs and flows, look, it hasn't been all roses. It's like that speech Rocky gives his son in Rocky Balboa. Life's going to knock you down, no matter if you have the job or not. You always have to keep fighting. You always have to keep swinging. And that's what I've done my entire career. And look, guys, I'm still not complacent. I still look at this as me being in that chair, just being an associate producer. Now that I'm on the air, I want at some point to do play-by-play for the Yankees. I want to do play-by-play for the Nets. And that's what I hope this opportunity with the Liberty gives me. But I don't want to look too far into the future. I want to concentrate on what I have now and getting sports back in general and doing the best job that I can to bring all of the things that I do at the highest level. A quote that I live by is John Wooden, and that is, failure to prepare is preparing to fail. So if you want to take that and run with it, you can, but I've lived by it. And in this business, guys, let's face it, you know, the New York audience, they could tell if you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So many gems that you just dropped, so many things that you just said parallel with my own experience and my journey. That quote, you know, I'm always preparing because I have failed in the past when I wasn't prepared. And I hate that feeling of being on a show or being on the spot and you're not ready. When you talk about the Yes Network and the Yes Network family, when I first met Chris, I ran into Chris my first time coming to the Yes Network office. And I'm connected with Josh Isaac, who produces, you know, shows for the Nets. I'm connected with Jonathan Ziegler and Kevin Sullivan, who do stuff around the Nets, the Yankees for Yes Network. And I look at those guys as mentors. And the first time I came to the Yes Network, I'm telling you, I put a suit on. I wanted to present myself the right way. And I was just blown away because I'm a Yankee fan and a Nets fan. I'm like, this is where you want to be as a fan and someone in media doing what I'm doing. And I ran into Chris. He was coming out of the gym, you know, getting his little swole workout on. And that's something that I do. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, I know you. And, you know, I was just happy to see him as a face I recognized from Nets coverage. You know, Chris, for you guys listening, when they cut back to the studio, Chris is there. Halftime, Chris is there. Post game, Chris is there. And he was one of the consistents in the post-game pregame show for the Nets. You know, like we saw like Frank Isola, Nancy, a couple different people pop in, but Chris was pretty consistent with the Nets this year and maybe a couple years before. What else did you say? Oh, you talked about slicing rye bread at an A&P and just the journey and how you're going to take some L's. You're going to take some losses. This week, I just came up on 2 years since I quit my job at Rock Nation, and I thought that was going to be my last corporate job, and it really was my last corporate job until I started working at John Boy Media. But in between that time, in those 2 years, I drove for Lyft, I delivered for Uber Eats, I worked at a restaurant for 2 months just because I knew that I needed to like have gigs where I could still create content, do podcasts, go to events, go to games and cover games, but I couldn't be at a desk. I couldn't be at a place 40, 50 hours a week in one spot. And, you know, some people, even in my family and friends, were kind of questioning me, like, what are you doing working at a restaurant? What are you doing driving Lyft? I'm like, listen, I know what I'm doing. I know where I'm going. It's all part of the
plan, right?
Yeah, like I have to sacrifice and do this. I have to be humble and do this right now. It's temporary. And I mean, with those student loans, I've got more in student loans than I've got in the bank. I'll be paying those student loans for the next few years, but it's worth it. It's part of it.
Yeah.
Hudson is going to go to school he goes to school at Fordham, and he's going to start radio and television as his major or focus, which I mean, I don't know if it's confirmed, but I'd like to see him do that because he's my co-host and I think highly of him. I went to school for radio and television at Monmouth University. And when I came out of school, I had nothing. I had no leads. I had no recommendations. I had no one answering any type of emails or any type of resumes that I sent in. And I ended up, you know, just trying to figure it out. You broke in, you said, with MLB. I also broke in with MLB. I got into the MLB fan cave a couple years after I graduated. And that's what kind of propelled me to where I am now. That was the first thing on my resume that was credible. It's funny you said that, you know, MLB Productions was that for you. Right. So I knew I liked this guy. I'm glad we got him on Talkin Nets.
Hey, let me stop you there, Keith, because I have to say this. It's about all those times that on the journey that you do fail, because this goes back to my childhood and my father, God rest his soul. We lost him in November. It's been an awful run for my family. I lost my father in November. I lost my cousin in January. It's just 2020 and right before 2020 started has absolutely been atrocious. But what my father provided for me my entire life was the notion that if you work hard, eventually it will pay off and the squeaky wheel gets the oil. You're not going to get anything. You know, my father-in-law also has a saying, and I won't curse because I don't want to curse, but my father-in-law says, wish in one hand and you know what in the other, and see which fills up faster. Wishing isn't going to get you anything. Right. Wishing will get you nothing. You have to work hard. And Keith, I'm just sorry that you didn't know me when you graduated Monmouth, because one of the things I like to do, and I brought up my father because he had nothing to do with this business. Everything that I've done in television, I've done on my own.
Yeah.
On my own. I've made my own way. I've carved out my own path. My father was a computer programmer for the government. He worked for the Department of Commerce his entire life, basically until he dropped dead. He worked. So he instilled in me that work ethic. When he was first married to my mother, he worked 3 jobs. He did whatever he needed to do to provide for my mother and my older brother, who was just born. So that work ethic has been instilled in me my entire life. So the fact that you didn't know me at the time, and I didn't know anybody when I was breaking in, that kind of gets me upset, because I wish you did know to reach out, because I try to help whoever reaches out to me, because I didn't have that person. And look, I might not be able to get you a job, but if you want to sit there for a half hour and pick my brain, whether it be on, well, now we're doing Zooms, but if you want to go back and forth on email, if you want to Zoom me, you want to do anything, all you have to do is reach out. I don't care if you're in high school. I don't care if you're in college. I don't care if you're in grade school, for crying out loud. Yeah. If this is a career path you want to try, then I want to help. I want to try to be that footstool to get you to the next rung on the ladder.
That's absolutely an amazing mentality to have. And I think it's something that we've heard from a lot of people that we've had on. We had Ian Eagle on, and he talked about
Ian is, let me just stop you there, Hudson. Just 1 second. I'm sorry. Ian Eagle is probably the nicest person in broadcasting. Think about how good he is, and think about the time he gives to everybody. Not everybody's like that. And Ian has been like that since day one when I met him. I cannot say enough good about that man and his family.
Well, that's the train that I was on, and I'm glad you took it to the place I wanted you to go, Chris. What you're talking about is you're always on the come up. You're always working up. You're always working for something. And even though some might see, oh, you have a play-by-play gig, that's, the pinnacle, but you're working to get to a higher pinnacle. And it seems like the Yes Network, especially with Ian Eagle, is a great place to make those connections, to make those friends, to work towards that pinnacle, to that higher level. So, I guess you've already answered this, but, the help you've gotten from Ian Eagle and whoever it may be at the Yes Network, like how much has that contributed to your ability to, expand your horizons when it comes to all this?
When I first got the opportunity to do play-by-play for Yale basketball and football, at first the package was Yale on Yes. I don't know if you guys remember that, but it was Yale on Yes first. And then we did an all-encompassing Ivy League package with all the teams. But when I got my first opportunity to do play-by-play, who did I reach out to? The play-by-play whisperer, Ian Eagle. And he couldn't have been more gracious with his time. And I wish I could, I don't want to run away from the computer, but I still have it upstairs in my house. He gave me his sheet that he prepares with all the players, the coach. There's a box for the coach. There's 2 boxes for the coach. And there's, I believe he has 15 boxes for the players on this sheet. And I looked at he sent me some of his, so I could have a reference on how to build that sheet. So what I've done is, if people have reached out to me, I forwarded them Ian's stuff. And then I've showed them, because I kind of took Ian's format and made it my own. I made it so it's my own thing. And that's what everybody does. No one's going to use somebody else's program the way they do things. You just make it so it's yours. And that's what I've done with mine. And I have, it's amazing. I have this book, it flips open, and when you flip it open, it's all highlighted and it's color coordinated. I am so OCD when it comes to preparing. Keith, this goes to what you were saying about how you're always prepared for things. Well, this is me, man. Like it's blue. If it's the Chicago sky, all right, their primary color is blue, and they're blue and yellow. So their players get highlighted in light blue. And if there's an interesting tidbit about one of the players, it gets a yellow highlighter. And I know, like, when I'm calling the game, if I look down, boom, my eye goes right to the part, because I know exactly where that player is on that board. I don't have to search. because I've been studying the damn thing for 2 to 3 days. So I know exactly where it is. But it's not only Iron Eagle. I have to give props to almost everybody who works as talent for the S Network. Bob Lorenz, first and foremost, whenever I have any kind of doubt or issue or anything, I go in his office, I shut the door, I go on his couch, and it's like Sigmund Freud of sports broadcasting is putting me on the couch and getting me through whatever the hell I'm getting through. He's been tremendous throughout my time there. Fred Hickman, before him. I wasn't on the air when Fred was there, but he was our first Yankees and Nets pre and post host. He came from CNNSI with Bob. He's the one who brought Bob over from CNNSI, and Bob came up. But Fred, too. Fred was extremely gracious with his time and one of the nicest people I've met in the broadcast field. Jack Curry, who went to Fordham, he's had nothing but great advice for me over time, and you're both Yankee fans. So this will probably hit home with both of you. But Keith, I want to get your thoughts on this really quick. And that's the fact, my dad, when he watched baseball, he would get into it and get really, really energetic, because he played semi-pro baseball. He tried out for the Yankees. So when he was watching, he was a catcher. So he's one of those who he's always thinking, he's always, he would watch a game. It would be watching a game with like a physicist. Mm-hmm. So it was great. But at the same time, he was so animate and so emotional about the game. But Jack taught me, dial back the emotion a little bit and look analytically at the game. And I'm not talking about sabermetrics. I'm talking about, have that vested interest as a emotional fan. But at the same time, instead of getting that pissed off reaction about something, sit back and try to figure out why that pitch was thrown or why the cutoff wasn't hit. There's so many machinations in the game of baseball. And again, I know this is a Nets. I know this is Talkin Nets. I'm just trying to make
this is Talking Chris Shearn today. We're going in on all you.
I don't want to make it about me though. That's not me. But Jack has been great. Nancy Newman, Ryan Rucco. I don't want to miss it. Kenny Singleton. I mean,
John Flaherty.
John Flaherty. Thank you, Keith, because I'm going to forget people. Al Leiter when he was with us. Paul O'Neill.
Ken Singleton.
Kenny and David Cohn. Just everybody. Everybody welcomes you in. And you're talking about
Paul Kenny O'Neill.
Yeah.
Obviously, Kenny, I'll watch a little bit of the Yankees.
Yeah. I mean, O'Neill, how many championships has O'Neill won? How many championships has Cohn won? How much success have they had in the game of baseball? To me, when I first met them, they're like walking gods. And then they treat me. It took a while to just, oh, what's up? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because when you're a fan, it takes a little bit to disassociate from the fan. Hey, they're just, touch them, pinch them. They're human beings, but they're just human beings who had superlative baseball and athletic skills. So, it's just, and I said pinch them. I always have to pinch myself when I think about where I am and what I do and what I'm able to do and the things I'm able to see. And I got to go back to the Liberty guys too, since we're doing basketball here. I mean, that experience, I can't say it enough, how awesome that experience was last year, how the team, the organization, let me say this. The Nets organization and the Liberty organization, they're both under the umbrella now of Joe Tsai. But, the Nets, since I've been involved with them, and now the Liberty after them, they have treated me like family, especially the Liberty. I mean, I'm more vested with the Liberty. I do the studio for the Nets. I'm not really at the arena a lot, so I'm not with the players. But the Liberty players and the Liberty staff, the front office, the coaching staff, even the new coaching staff with Walt Hopkins, I mean, they just welcome you in immediately. You're part of their family. And I got to tell you, that means the world to me. For somebody to just accept me immediately, I'll run through a brick wall for anybody like that.
Well, you're in a great spot with the Liberty. Obviously, we know Sabrina, #1 pick, and they've got
God,
a bunch of draft picks. Like, it's a new era for the Liberty. On this podcast, we spoke highly of how Josai, the Liberty, the Brooklyn Nets, the Barclays Center, just how they've moved in this climate right now where a lot of organizations, teams, businesses don't know how to move. I'm very proud to be a fan of all of that, and be doing a podcast around the Nets, and have people like you coming on the pod that are involved with the Yes Network and that call the games for the Liberty. It just seems like there's a lot of good people involved. It just seems like a comfortable environment that's all inclusive, and that's what we're trying to push. That's what we're trying to get more people on board with, in a time where people are trying to divide us. We're trying to bring people together. So that's awesome to hear.
That's the thing, man. And I'm glad you brought that up, because I've been waiting to say this for a very long time. My entire life, my parents, we grew up in a loving household, and we were taught to love everybody. There was no nonsense going on in my life, and especially with my extended family too, man. I grew up in South River, New Jersey. It was a racially diverse place, and I was very fortunate to grow up with African Americans, Greeks, Portuguese people, Hungarians, Italians, Polish people. I mean, it was an eclectic mix of people, and that if you're in that bubble, you're able to break away from that and have a better understanding of what the hell is going on right now. And I could tell you some stories. I want you guys to lead this, but I just needed to say that, we need more people bringing us together rather than separating us into different. Look, in my eyes, I was taught my entire life we're all brothers and sisters in the eyes of God. And that's the way I lived my life. And if that's wrong, then I don't want to be right. I mean, that's just the way I am. It's the way I've always been, and that's the way I always will be. And that's the way I'm raising my children. I have 2 young daughters, and they're growing up in a household that teaches them to love and respect everyone, regardless of anything. It's that simple, boys.
Chris, you just showed that journalistic sixth sense that we know you have, and you just
Segue?
got us
Am I the king of segues?
directly into our first segment. We're going What's Now, and we're going to lead with someone who seems to be espousing the exact opposite of what you're saying, and we're staying in the WNBA, in your favorite league right now. We're talking about how Senator Kelly Loeffler, maybe? I don't know. I'm not going to respect her because she's not respecting a lot of people. She's the co-owner of the Atlanta Dream. I believe she's a minority owner. She wrote the WNBA commissioner to express her opposition to the Black Lives Matter movement and asked the league to put the American flag on every jersey. She talked about how she doesn't want to politicize basketball, how she doesn't want it on the court, how she disagrees with a bunch of things that they're doing. So obviously, we know how you feel about this, talking about how much you value, people coming together, right, and people working together. When you see something like this, how do you react as both, Chris Shearn, the WNBA play-by-play announcer, and Chris Shearn, the person?
No, there's no difference. There's no separation.
Exactly.
And if I could do really quick the shaking my head emoji. Just let me throw that up there really quick, because let's face it. I mean, you have both sides of this saying that Black Lives Matter, the organization, stands for things that aren't right. And then there's some people that say, I'm for the sentiment of Black Lives Matter, just not the organization. They don't understand that what people are trying to say is that they feel, and I've talked about this with people of color in my life, okay? I reach out to them when things like this happen. And that's not what they're not trying to say that their lives matter than anybody else. They're just trying to raise their voices. They're trying to turn the volume up to say that while you think there isn't stuff like this that goes on, there in fact is stuff like this that goes on. And it's time to listen. It's time to have a conversation. It's time to talk. It's time to come together. This, what she's doing, and first and foremost, guys, she's worth $500 million. I looked it up before we came on. She's worth $500 million. Plus, she's got some insider trading stuff that she's got to worry about too. But she's worth $500 million. She doesn't care what she says, okay? And we got to remember that politicians follow the money, guys.
Yeah.
Follow the money. Guys like us, guys who work paycheck to paycheck and pay our bills, we're just like the sheep that keep walking. So people that want to raise their voice to unite everybody instead of divide, I'm all for that, because that's what they're scared of. They don't want that. They don't want united people. They want the country. Machiavelli, you know who he is? Divide and conquer. I want everybody coming together. I don't want everybody separating. And what she's doing, by doing what she's doing, instead of taking the opportunity, and I'll talk about the NFL in a second, because they could have squashed this years ago. But anyway, this is just like exactly what Keith said. Her writing to Kathy Engelbert and writing what she wrote is just being divisive for her side. That's all she's trying to do. She's trying to divide, because let's face it, anybody against that sentiment has something wrong up here. They do. Something is not right. If someone says that to me, like if Keith came up to me and said that to me, I'd hug him. Because how old are you guys?
32.
18.
You're 18 and Keith, you're 32. I'm approaching 50. Quick. I've been on this planet since 1973. And I'm going to tell you straight up, and this is what I've waited a long time to say publicly. I've told my people of color friends this, whether it was on Instagram or text or seeing them in person, because I did go to see a girl that I grew up with. I shouldn't say girl. She's a woman now. She's almost 52. She graduated with me. But I went and I said, I never needed an organization or a hashtag to tell me that you matter. I always knew that, because it was instilled in me from the day I could hear, and it was audible, and I could relay that. When you're a kid, my kids, I'll give you the perfect example. My kids, they don't know black and white. They say the names. Oh, well, so-and-so said this. So-and-so said that. They don't say a black kid said this or an Asian kid said this. That's the other thing too. Like, for so long, and I'm old. I'm getting to 50. So just bear with me here. And this is the point. When I was another sports reference, but when I was 6 going on 7, it was February of 1980. So I was going to be 7 in August. The U.S. Olympic team won the gold. Again, they beat the Russians, and then they won another game to win the gold. Everybody was waving an American flag. Everybody was proud to be an American. It was just that when you watch the Olympics, you hated Russia like they were the Red Sox. You hated China like they were the Astros. I mean, you were just so full of your country's pride, and you were rooting for everything. And now it seems like that's out the window. I don't want that to be the case. Everybody's been split, and it's been a process, maybe 30 years. I'm African American, I'm Asian American, I'm Italian American, I'm Irish American, I'm Polish American. How about you're just American, okay? And we all come together. And I brought up September 11th at the beginning of this. On September 11th, 2001, I remember I left where I went to work at 6 in the morning. I didn't leave till 9 that night. And Route 3 was closed. The Turnpike was closed. 17 was closed. I couldn't get home. So they put us up in the Meadowlands Hilton. 9 o'clock, President Bush addressed the nation. There were all colors, all races in that bar watching him speak. All of us hugging, all of us getting together. We were united. All right. Everybody that ran into that tower to save those people, they didn't care what color they were. They just cared that they had to get people out of there. And that's what we need to get back to. We need to realize that we're all in this together, guys. All of us, regardless of race, religion, creed, sexuality, anything. We're all in this together. And all of those things that they try to separate us with, that's what's so divisive That's what's so divisive. Sorry, I mispronounced that.
I knew what you were saying.
but that's the thing. I yearn for a country again where my daughters and your kids, when they're born, they grow up and we're all Americans again. You know, we're all united. That's what I want. It pisses me off so much that we're at this point right now. Pandemic, racial unrest. What else are we throwing in there? What else is going on?
I mean, this country is being exposed for all of its weaknesses and all the things that they didn't address. And this juncture, right, it's no coincidence that it's 2020. I think what you're talking about is the vision of the future of this country that we all really want to see. I mean, now we're seeing more than ever. Some people don't want that. They want us to go backwards. They want us to make America great again. It's a shame. We're coming off 4th of July, and I feel like people are confused. We're hearing about like Deshaun Jackson and what he put out there. He's certainly confused. Americans are confused, and African Americans, you know, we're not so much confused. We're confused that like we still have to do this, that we still have to talk about this. And I did see some account that I follow. They said, we're not celebrating July 4th. We're wearing all black. You know, this isn't our country. And I didn't agree with that. I've been to other countries. We built this country. If we really want to talk about it, black people are just as responsible for all of this country's success, but we just didn't get the respect for it. We didn't get the credibility for it. We didn't get the song and dance, the praise for it.
Let me ask you a question. You're 100% right, by the way. And let me ask you this question. What do you think about Black History Month?
I mean, for me, it's ironic that it's the shortest month of the year. And
besides that, though, it's what Morgan Freeman said. There should be a Black History Month because of what you just said, Keith.
I just think it's
your people helped build this country.
I think it's not necessarily needed. Why don't we teach Black history instead of giving a month? It's kind of like just again like getting the short end of the stick. Like here, we'll throw you this month to highlight it. And what I find every year for Black History Month, you know, working at John Boy Media, I sat down with John Boy and I said, "Yo, we got to do something for Black History Month." Mm-hmm. And he was open, obviously, to it. And we talked about it. And I said, listen, me being literally the only Black person that works at John Boy Media, I will spearhead it. I have the ideas. I have the video editing skills. I will create what we're going to do. And since we're baseball fans, I did things like highlight Major League Baseball. And I said, where are all our Black heroes in baseball? The Hank Aarons, to the Barry Bondses, to the Ken Griffey Jr.'s, to the Tony Gwynns. Where'd they all go? Why don't we have them now? Why is there only 8% Black people in Major League Baseball? Why is there only 8% African Americans in the league? And I talked about the Black aces, right? The pitchers that we have, the 20-game winners. I talked about a bunch of different things. The Negro Leagues. We're in the 100 years of the Negro Leagues. And every post that I put out was greeted with some type of negativity, some type of racism, people not understanding the reason that we were doing it. And that makes me think like, you know what? And I said, John, like we did this for Black History Month, but what we need to do is research and work on it and study it more. And we have an idea that's going to come out, and it's not going to come out in Black History Month. We're just going to put it out when we feel like putting it out. Now, this is before the pandemic. This is in February, before everything shut down, before George Floyd was killed, before the protests, before everything that we're seeing. This is what we were on. And we saw the racism in the comments. We saw the ignorance in the comments. Mm-hmm. It's just what it is. And I feel like right now we're at a juncture in time where before we move forward, before we can get to this better place, we have to destroy before we elevate. We have to break all of this down. We've kind of been living in this like fake world that this racism that we see right now doesn't exist. And the only way to move forward and change it is to confront it. And we've been having now these uncomfortable conversations. We've been having these initiatives. And here's the last thing I say, because I want to get us in the basketball stuff. This Black Lives Matter movement and the hashtag and the group, I hate to see it politicized. I hate to see people, I guess, Republicans, and I've never voted. I'm not a political person, but I know a lot of people that are following after our president are saying Black Lives Matter is the Democrats and it's a political movement. No, it's as simple as the phrase Black Lives Matter in this country, in this world. You saw protests in 50 states and 18 countries, which show you that it is not just a United States political movement. It's fact, and people need to respect it, and people need to start acting like it, and we need to figure out ways where Black people can start feeling like it, where we can actually move throughout this country and feel like we are valuable, feel like we matter, feel like we are equal to everyone else. And it's simple as that. Don't complicate it and say that, oh, it's the Democrats or people are trying to raise money for this. That's not what it's about. It's simple as the phrase. Black lives matter in this country, in this world.
It's divide and conquer. It's what I told you. It's just that's what they want, and that's what we have to fight against. It's as simple as that.
And we will. A lot of us are fighting on our platforms. We're using this podcast as a platform to fight and spread the message. And it's just the beginning. Like, I feel like we're going to be going through this for the whole decade. The 2020 vision is of a better future. That's the whole irony in all this. People are talking about new year, new me. 2020 is going to be my year.
I thought it was going to be my year.
Yeah, pump your brakes. Pump your brakes. We got to fix this first. We got to fix this, sir. We were living the way we were living was wrong. Even I talk about the 40-hour work week and commuting into New York City. I'm like, change that. Now people have seen you can work from home. You have all the tools. You have the internet access. We have Zoom. You can literally set up in your home office and do the same stuff you were doing in the office in New York. The old way in New York City corporate was you show up early, you leave late, you put in 40, 50 hours a week in office to show that. No, I can do the same thing in my house where I'm comfortable, where I have my coffee and my family and, other things that I don't have in the office. It's actually saving me time on the commute. Like, there are a lot of other things that we need to destroy and rebuild so that we can elevate into a better future. And we'll get there. Let's see now. Where are we at?
You're talking about working from home, people working from home. We're going to go into a hard segue back into basketball here.
Yeah.
The Heat, the Nuggets, and the Bucks, all those players from all those teams are going to be working from home. We got positive COVID tests, and all of their practice facilities are shut down. And this was just ahead. This was at the beginning of this week, ahead of people going to Orlando. So combine that with a lot of people getting sick, a lot of NBA players having some second thoughts. I'll go to Chris first. Chris, how do you feel about, players in the NBA or the WNBA not being able to practice, not being able to get up to their level in advance of these, supposed restarts?
Well, first, I think the meals have to get better. But I just think, look, I think all these leagues are pretty much walking on eggshells. I give them an A+ for effort, for trying to get back. But seeing how, as you just said, 3 teams have shut down their practice facilities, and we're in that window where we're starting to ramp back up to a season, those 8 games that will be played before the playoffs start. And, I got to tell you, I just don't know. I just did a New York Post podcast, and Ken Davidoff, who writes for the Post, doesn't think we're going to get through the 60-game baseball season. So I can't, like John Sterling says, you can't predict baseball. You can't predict this virus. And I give all the players who are going down to Orlando all the credit in the world for trying to get the season back up and running. But it's going to be very interesting to see if they're able to even get to that first game of the 8-game slate.
Yeah, I think it's a safety thing, right? So we listed in the notes the Heat, the Nuggets, the Bucks closed their practice facilities, but they closed their practice facilities and they're traveling to Orlando. So I guess the facilities didn't need to be open much longer. Don't put anybody else at risk, people that work there, players. And we do know that the players have reported to Orlando. And Chris already mentioned the meals, which Hudson could take us into the next part that we're going to talk about. What we've seen so far from last night, these guys' dinners.
Yeah, so we had Troy Daniels and Chris Chiozza send out some pretty tough looking photos of the food they were being provided with. And, I'm sure we've all seen them. The question that comes to my mind, and the question that I'm going to ask you guys is how, if they can't get the food right off the bat, and I know things have changed. I know it's supposedly going to change after the first 48 hours, so we have that to look forward to. But if they can't get the food right, how can we expect them to get all of these other safety measures right?
I don't think you have to worry too much about that. I mean, I think it was funny the pictures I saw with the food. I mean, the best comment I saw was it looked like a fire festival meal, with the slices of cheese and the fruit and just like here's a salad. They just like took a handful of spinach and threw it in that thing and closed it. I think the food will get better. I think that's not gonna be something they're gonna have to worry about too much longer. But my main concern is, keeping the staff and the players in that secure bubble with no outsiders coming in and being able to infect one person. Because look, let's say somebody has it, they don't know they have it, they're with their teammates, they go play a game, and I don't know if they're going to be tested before every game, but they go out there, they play another team, and then both teams leave the bubble, they go back, and maybe they get tested the next day, and the bulk of those teams have it. Then what do they have to do? Do they have to quarantine half the team? Are they going to sign guys, or are guys going to come up from their G League team? I just don't know how that's going to work. I mean, I want it to. Don't get me wrong. I want this to work. I just don't know how it's going to work.
Yeah, Joel Embiid came out and said that, all I do is play video games. I'm going to stay in the room, but I don't trust the rest of those guys to go out. Like, some of these guys are going to head out when they have a little window to head out. And it's interesting that we saw the meals the first night. It's laughable. On Talkin Nets Twitter, we said, this is giving us Fyre Fest vibes because it's not what you expect. We know LeBron is not eating this. We know these guys are millionaires. Most of them have chefs. And they also have like strict diets where this is going to get fixed in the first 2 days. So it was a good laugh, but
poor Chris Chioza doesn't have that chef yet.
Yeah, well, you're 100% right. Actually, like the guys on the Nets that went down there, they're not on the level of having their own personal chef.
And that's I'll let you finish, Keith.
I think with the meals, it's good for a laugh, but there is some things in the horizon that aren't going to be laughable. This thing has to go on for 3 months. The bubble is in Florida. Florida is spiking. And if guys don't follow the strict protocol, there's a high chance of someone contaminating their team or, other players. And this thing potentially, and even Adam Silver came out and said it, if the cases go up and we're testing players daily and more cases, they're going to have to cancel this thing. So, let's stay tuned. I'm glad we could get a laugh from, seeing these meals that look like, I saw like a watermelon cup, a bag of chips. They literally look like just like airplane food or like the stuff that you get in the airport before you get on the plane where you're just trying to get food real quick.
You could eat better in an airport.
You absolutely could eat better in the airport.
Well, that brings us pretty nicely right into our next segment, who's in, who's out. And we do have some people out. A couple of Nets are going to be out, but let's start at the top. Dwight Howard is in, and he was one of the first people to come out and say, after Kyrie made his comments, I agree with you, Kyrie. I don't know if going back is the best thing to do considering the political climate, but he did come out and along with Patty Mills and say they're going to be donating all of their checks to Black Lives Matter movements. So that's one person to think about who's coming in. I know Dwight Howard's definitely thinking a lot about that ring, just like LeBron is. I guess, the question I want to ask is, what do we think about them playing but still making that statement that they are going to support Black Lives Matter even though they're playing?
I think that's the right way to go about it. I mean, if you truly believe in the cause and in the movement, I think playing gives you that platform. And I know Kyrie's doing something on Instagram, and he's using that to also promote it. So I think the players who are coming back, I think they could disagree with Kyrie and they could do what Patty Mills is doing. That's tremendous what he's doing. He's going to go play. He's going to use his NBA player status as a platform, and he's going to donate his salary to the movement. So I don't think you're not wrong either way. If you want to stay away and it's because of that, and you want to do things like Kyrie is doing, hey, do that. And if you want to stay away from the COVID thing, do that. And if you want to play and you want to get your message out that way, just get the message out. There's no right or wrong here, in my estimation.
Yeah, and I mean, I like that Dwight Howard is playing. I know he had some issues, and we spoke about it on this podcast with his family. I like that he is playing. And on Talking Sports, I mentioned the fact that, look at how the Lakers move under the leadership of LeBron James, right? Most of the Lakers are there reporting they're going to play. The Nets, I know it's completely different because our guys aren't healthy, but the Nets are under the leadership of KD, Kyrie, two guys that we've known for a while aren't going to play and haven't really spoke highly of the bubble. So I'm not surprised to see some of the Nets guys opt out, but guys like Victor Oladipo opting out. He didn't really play that much this year. Pacers actually played better without him. Guys like Bradley Beal opting out. Not really surprised there. The Wizards don't really have that great of a team either. That's why I'm pretty sure we're not going to drop out because I don't see the Wizards beating anyone down there.
No, there's no way.
And as far as like who else is on this list? Oh, Nikola Jokic. Now, he missed his flight. That's a whole nother thing. But we were talking about him a couple of weeks ago and how you have to test negative twice before you're cleared. He finally did that, but then misses his flight. He should just opt out. We'll see what happens with the Nuggets. They probably don't want that.
Yeah, definitely not. And, you're talking about a lack of leadership. And I don't know if this is, correlation, not causation. I don't know. But we did have 2 Nets players officially dropped out, an additional 2, bringing our total to 4 that have opted out because of COVID. Spencer Dinwiddie is out. Taurean Prince is out. Like I mentioned in the open, 7 people in total from the Nets roster before going into COVID are now going to be out, are not going to be in Orlando, are not going to be playing. Chris, what do you think about all these Nets players dropping out?
Listen, the players who tested positive, I don't blame them one bit because we've seen throughout this pandemic that it does come back and they can get it again. We still don't know what the long-term effects of this are if you do get it and it's bad. I have nothing wrong with anybody who wants to stay away and just, saddle up for 2020, 2021. But as far as the Nets competing down there, I think, in your notes, which were beautifully done, by the way, I saw that the Nets don't have a player over 6'9". The only one that they have is Jared Allen. So, I mean, that's going to be challenging when your front court right now. I know Amir Johnson was being bandied about as the Nets seeking his help. But your front court is basically JA. So it's going to be interesting to see. I know, but Keith's point is very salient here. And that's the point that Bradley Beal has opted out. And if the Wizards had any shot at all at catching the Magic or the Nets, Beal had to be down there in Orlando. And him not being there, I just don't see how the Nets, even though they're very shorthanded right now, are going to drop out of the playoff race.
Yeah, definitely. It definitely goes in a lot of faith in the face of people who are saying that the Nets should tank, the Nets should just get that draft pick. But you segued perfectly to our second to last segment, which seems to be a theme here. You're the king of segues. We're going into what's Nets. And the first thing we're going to mention is we record this on July 8th, Wednesday. Yesterday, Tuesday, the team went down to Orlando, so that's how we got to see Chris Chiozza's opening meal. We got to see the group of people that are going to Orlando, regardless of their injury or whatever. So we do have Karis LeVert, we do have Jared Allen, we do have Tyler Johnson. I don't know so we're not dropping out. We're all on the same page that we're not going to be able to drop out of the playoffs. But as a team, do you think that there's a line that we might hit where the Nets might just drop out as a whole team?
That's a fair question. I don't know if they do that. If they're going down there and the players are there already and they left, I would put my money on them competing. I would think this would be a decision that Sean Marks and ownership makes before they even get down there. So if they're there, I think they're going to play and they have a plan in place. And like Keith said, I'll say it again, I just don't see any way that they fall out of playoff contention. Do they lose the 7th seed? Perhaps, but I don't think they fall out of the 8th seed.
We're going to play. I mean, we're going to play this thing out, and we're going to play with these backup guys, with these guys we're signing, we still have guys to sign that we can sign. And what I look at it as, and I've said this a bunch of times before, this is like a tryout. This is like summer league. This is like even like an NBA combine workout. Like, we're looking at these players to see who actually belongs on this team with KD and Kyrie. That's going to be a championship level team.
This is when they'd be playing summer league anyway. And then that's a great point. I mean, this is a chance for Chiozza to say, hey, maybe I deserve to come back in 2020, 2021.
And as Nets fans, I want to say this to the Nets fans. I said this on Talkin Sports. As Nets fans, like, we had no chance of winning this bubble. We had no chance of winning the finals this year. We were a playoff team, yes, and we still are going to be a playoff team. And if the coronavirus didn't happen, whatever, maybe we would have met the Raptors and stole that series. But it was always a dream. Just like KD and Kyrie rejoining us. We talked about it all year. That was a dream. And them coming to Orlando, it was a dream. As Nets fans, we need to keep being patient, as we've been for literally a calendar year now since we knew KD and Kyrie were coming this way.
Oh, it's been longer than that, my friend.
Oh, yeah. Well,
talk to the guy who's been doing the pre- and post-game shows.
From the New Jersey Nets days of watching us take multiple L's, the patience continues.
Yeah, those were some long West Coast trips.
Of course.
Back in the day.
We know it. Luckily, that's in the past. But hey, if we've waited this long, keep waiting. Next year is going to be ridiculous, and it's going to be everything to look forward to. But to look forward to now is to see what these young guys got, see what these young guys do, and look at the entire NBA. I don't think you can be a Nets fan without being an entire NBA fan, because it's not like we've had that much to root for over the last few decades. Look at the storylines in the NBA. Will LeBron and AD do it? Are they the favorites? No, now they're saying the Clippers are the favorites. Kawhi and PG. Giannis still wants his shot at stealing a title. Guys like Jason Tatum have come out from the Celtics to say, why not go win it? The defending champs, the Toronto Raptors, still think that they have the team to do it. And this is an element where the best team, the best well-coached team, the best practice team will succeed. So watch with more than the Nets eye. This isn't really about us, and the Nets organization is not trying to make this appealing for Nets fans to watch. This is part of building for next year.
Let me ask both of you guys. Let me ask both of you guys a question. If you look back, if they get through everything, they get through the playoffs, they crown a champion. Does that champion come with an asterisk, or do you look at this as a real NBA champion?
I will say it will have an asterisk, but nobody talks about the year that was it 2000 and I forget what year it was when the Spurs won it and there was a lockout. Nobody talks about that. They all talk about
it was 99 because they beat the Knicks.
Okay, so that year, right, there was a lockout, and nobody talks about that in the Spurs dynasty. And this is a good way to segue to the next thing we're going to talk about. But nobody talks about that championship as not being a real championship. They lump it in with the Spurs dynasty and all the championships that they had.
No, you're right.
So I think if the Clippers win, and I've said this on the pod, if the Clippers win, this is going to be like a passing of the torch in LA. But if the Lakers win, then it's like the Lake show is back. If the Bucks win, it's like, okay, well, that was the Bucks' opportunity because they weren't going to win it any other way but this time. So I think it's just going to, and it'll be the Bucks' first championship in decades. So I think that this will hold the same way the Spurs championship holds in their dynasty or whatever. And the next thing that we want to talk about is this Godfather offer that was rumored to be out there for Greg Popovich in the last week. They're saying Joe Tsai is supposed to be offering him an offer that he can't refuse. And this is all I'll say on it because I don't even really want to talk about it. It's not happening. There's so many factors for this not to happen than to happen. Nets fans, I know we are the biggest dreamers in the league. It's not going down. Even if the offer does go out, he's not going to accept the offer. He's not coming here to coach the Brooklyn Nets, and it wouldn't work with KD and Kyrie. And we just talked about his dynasty and what he's built in San Antonio. Greg Popovich is not the next Brooklyn Nets coach. I'm sorry.
But Keith, he sold his house.
Oh, yeah. So what? He might want another crib. He might want a smaller place. people sell their houses and move in the same like city location? He's old, man. You think he's trying to come all the way to New York in the middle of a pandemic, American
He's 71
Revolution?
years of age.
Yeah, you think he's trying to uproot himself and finish his career out in Brooklyn? No. With Katie and Kyrie, I saw a lot of talk about that. People saying how thin-skinned Katie and Kyrie are and how, they're superstars and how they're used to, like, basically running the team and how they would never work with Pop. Now, I'm sure they have respect for Pop. I'm sure they would, in theory, be able to work with Pop, but I don't think Sean Marks is trying to make that happen. And I understand Sean Marks coming out of – no, Popovich is not going to coach the Brooklyn Nets in the future.
Well, I think we're going to stay on that theme of it being a tryout, just like it is a tryout for Jacques Vaughn, to see if we can make sure that we're okay with him being that coach instead of Greg Popovich, is what a lot of Nets fans are going to be thinking the alternative
or
was.
Tyronn Lue.
Or Tyronn. Well, yeah, but that one I'm okay with. That one, I got no complaints if we're not getting Tyronn Lue. But we got another player here who has done two things. He has first decided that he is going to choose his jersey name. Zanan Musa is going to wear equality and peace on the back of his jersey to honor George Floyd. Obviously, we've had a lot of talk on this podcast about achieving equality and peace. And for someone like Zanan Musa, who is definitely not the apple of a lot of Nets fans' eyes, is not maybe the best player on the team, but he's one of our three players that is 6'9" or taller, and he's going to get run because he has to. Do you see this, and I'll go to Chris first, do you see this as a good move on his part?
Absolutely. Why wouldn't it be? I mean, I think that's what every person with a brain wants, is equality and peace. When you say John and Musa, though, I have to, have a little levity here. The one image that I have burned into my brain is Kyrie taking him and throwing him into position in one of the games this past season. But yeah, man, who's going to get upset over the back of a jersey that says equality and peace? I mean, yeah,
Nets Twitter.
Duh.
Nets Twitter.
Well, then look, if you're looking to Twitter for people to have some sort of grasp on real life, then you need to delete the app for at least a week and walk around without it. Because if you're not swimming in the cesspool for a week, you kind of cleanse yourself of all that stuff. And you don't go in and you don't look at the trends, and you don't look at you don't go down the rabbit holes of all the people that are going back and forth. And, social media, it's great, but at the same time, it just brings stuff out of the woodwork that you just want to go, oh, geez, God, no. So I take social media breaks from time to time. I do. And it helps, because a lot of the stuff I see on there, look, I told you about my dad and my cousin, and that has put me into this mental state. This was before the pandemic started. So we lost 4 people last year in my family, and we never really got a chance to mourn anyone. And that's not easy, So, and then when your father passes away, that just rearranges your entire wiring of your brain, because when you expect to be able to text him or call him and he's not there, it just messes you up. So I'm trying to process all this stuff that's going on right now with all of the grief I'm trying to process as well. So it's been a hell of a run here since March, when Spencer Dinwiddie hit that buzzer beater to beat the Lakers out in LA. And I did the show with Frank Isola, and we were supposed to do the next show in Milwaukee without fans, which I was totally looking forward to, because you were, with the hot mics everywhere, you're going to be able to hear the players the entire game. You didn't need mic'd up Monday. They were going to be mic'd up without being mic'd up. And we were really looking forward to that, both Isola and myself. So it's been a hell of a stretch here for me mentally, and I'm trying to grasp all this stuff, and it's just not easy, guys. But the one thing I can grasp is, if a player is wearing equality and peace on the back of his jersey, it's not going to piss me off. It's going to say, yeah, duh. That's what we want. We want to move forward. We don't want to go backward.
Yeah, we put too much weight into social media. My background is in social media. I understand it. I get it. And with NBA Twitter and Nets Twitter, them getting that Musa over this it's just like, it's in the wrong space. What I get where it comes from, because some of the players said that the NBA, they kind of limited them by saying what they could put on their jerseys. And with Musa selecting, one of the things that, was out there for him to pick, people were like, oh, but that's foolish. What I'll say about Twitter, NBA Twitter, Nets Twitter, social media, before we move on, most of these people online are under the age of 18. And also, these are public opinions from anonymous accounts. These are public opinions from private accounts that we give way more weight than they actually deserve. We have no idea who these people are speaking. Like, I think we even, with all of this stuff that has gone on in the last couple months with George Floyd and the protest and Black Lives Matter, and even the people on the other side, whether it's Trump, MAGA, whatever, the internet, social media is good and bad. It gives people a voice that deserve it, but it also gives people a voice that don't deserve it.
Well, I think the last thing that I'll say about John and Musa wearing equality and peace is, he is not an American. He is from Bosnia, and he knows about what the consequences of a lack of equality and peace are. He's almost only a couple years older than me. He grew up in terrible, terrible, terrible conditions in a country that has just torn itself apart and literally exploded into a bunch of different countries over issues about equality and peace. So I think it's great for him. And I think to any clowns on social media, just in general, not just about this, if you're going to say something on social media, first off, don't. But second off, at least be a person and think about what the person that you're saying these things is, and the fact that that person is a person. But hard segue into our last topic on the Nets. We have 4 slots for replacement players. Amir Johnson's name was being floated around. There's a lot of other names that people are talking about. We need to fill slots, ideally with someone who's taller than 6'9".
So Nate Robinson is off the table.
Keith, Chris, I want you to both give me one name of one player to fill the slot.
Oh, wow.
Man, let Swaggy P get some run. I saw Swaggy P was talking about joining the Lakers. Why not? Let him get some run out there. I see people throwing out Jamal Crawford, and he can't play. I forget who else was out there. But at this point, come one, come all. Anybody could be in these next 4 spots, like 4 replacement spots.
What about Shump? You can bring Shump back, no?
Nah, Shump, I think, is on vacay.
Shump jumped out.
Yeah, he's on. His wife is pregnant, and he's been posting
right.
like he's off it. He would be great for us. Obviously, he played with us, but
he was very affable.
Yeah,
Amon Shumpert.
All right. Well, I think that's going to end our Nets talk, but we do have a little bit more NBA talk, a couple more things to hit on. The NBA has released its scrimmage schedule, and in just about 2 weeks, we're going to be, I believe, recording a podcast on the day that this happens. The Nets are scrimmaging against Zion and the Pelicans. Boys, what do we think about a Nets team with no one 6'9" or taller and Jared Allen, who is not exactly built like a freight train, going up against Zion and the Pelicans?
Jared's going to get into foul trouble quick.
Facts.
And, that's not a problem when you have Clax and you have DeAndre on the bench, but you don't have either one of those two moving forward. So it's going to be interesting to see who the Nets bring aboard and how they're going to handle this. But, you got to think about everything. And you got to think about the players and mentally what they're going through and what they're thinking every time they walk into the bubble and every time they're scrimmaging in a game. They're trying to compete at the highest level while in the back of their minds, they're thinking, all right, am I going to get tested positive with this tomorrow? So there's a lot of factors going into this. And I think Zion is just another one of those big things, literally and figuratively, that the Nets are going to have to worry about in that first scrimmage. But it's just so much to have to take in and try to process. But they're down there, and their job is to play some basketball and beat Zion and the Pelicans in that scrimmage. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. I wish we had access to watch the Nets take on the Pelicans, not just for Zion, for Lonzo, for Brandon Ingram, Josh Hart, some of the other guys that got on that team. The same way we just watched this intra-squad scrimmage on Yes Network. I wish there was some type of Yes Network coverage on that Wednesday night. We do the Nets Classics on Wednesdays on Yes. But maybe NBA Network or NBA TV, rather, will check in on that. I'm not too concerned about it. We'll see. This is all practice. We're going to have to play small ball. Jacques Vaughn's going to have to set something up. And, yeah, we record on Wednesdays. We've been booking the Yes Network broadcast crew. And if everything goes as planned, we will have special guests from the Yes Network on the 15th and the 22nd to, complete what we're trying to do here. I'm looking forward to Wednesday, July 2nd for sure.
Hard not to. But we have good news. We have a voicemail. We have been asking people to call in the voicemail line ever since we started it. So things kind of tapered off when the league ended. We had some people call us and then hang up without leaving a voicemail, which what are you doing? It's not like you can accidentally do it. You got to copy and paste it from our Twitter bio into, your phone. So it was a lot of work to just not leave a message.
Cold feet.
They're just afraid, and that's okay.
Some people get nervous. I know. I mean, it's not like you're calling into WFAN. It's not like you're calling into the Michael K show.
And you're leaving a voicemail. It's not live.
I see these pop up in my phone. We had 3 missed calls with no voicemails, but this voicemail comes in from our guy John, Mr. Burn Notice. And you guys might remember John from the Yes Network stream that we did, the first Brooklyn Nets watch along. He was in studio with me. We watched the Nets beat the Pacers. It was an epic game, great game to pick. So let's see if I can play this for you guys. And he's going to ask a question, and then we'll react to it.
Howdy, guys. It's John, a.k.a. Mr. Burn Notice. Hope you guys are doing well. I guess my question for the Nets in Orlando, if Karis LeVert goes off like we know he can, does that make him more or less likely to be traded next season? I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts. Take care, guys. Have a good one.
That's a good question. A good question.
So John wants to know if Karis goes down there to Orlando and he balls out, which when we're looking at this team, I think a lot of people got to realize, Karis is going to have the ball in his hands the whole game. And even Joe Harris is going to get more open shots, more looks to boy shots. But we're talking about Karis here. If Karis goes down there and balls out, is that going to make him more valuable to trade or more valuable to keep?
I think unequivocally that makes him more valuable to keep. I mean, why wouldn't you want that third head of the monster to go along with KD and Kyrie? Why would you trade him away if he goes down there? And what are you getting back for Karis LeVert? I mean, I need to know what you're getting back first. But to me, this kid was drafted by the organization. He has grown every single year, even past injury, a catastrophic injury. This guy came back and was more than he was before he got hurt. He has worked so hard to get to this point. He exemplifies to me what that whole culture and what the system was made for when he was drafted, and how he went out there and defended Kenny Atkinson. Man, his stock just rose with me when he did that. He and Kenny were close. Kenny was very instrumental to the development of Karis LeVert. So my personal opinion, I think they keep him, and I would want to keep him if I'm a Nets fan. Keith, you are a Nets fan. So what would you like to see happen?
Man, we're keeping him. I said from the time he was dropping 50 on the Celtics, and even before that, he had a thumb injury this year. And when he came back and, late in the game, he wasn't in a game that we lost, and everybody saw him on the bench, and Kenny kind of was slowly bringing him back in. I'm like, man, let him rock. He's a star. He's got star power. He's got star power potential. I think if he goes down there to Orlando and leads this team as the superstar on the team, we don't trade him. We don't let him go. He is one of our guys. And I know I thought we drafted him, but we actually acquired him on draft night from Indiana.
Right.
I think I said on one of these podcasts that we drafted him. We forget that happened because he is homegrown. He does really feel like one of our own, and he is. Like you said about the culture in Brooklyn with Kenny and us watching him from when he broke his leg, missed time. Like, we still haven't seen a full season of Karis LeVert.
No.
We do not want to let him go somewhere else.
And you know what?
And then
That's
see
scary.
him do that somewhere else.
Keith, that's scary. The fact that you still haven't seen a full season out of this guy. And here's the other thing that Isola and I, or Spinarkle and I, Sarah and I, whoever's in studio with me, whenever we talk about Karis LeVert, he's got that killer instinct, man. If Kyrie and KD were not on this team, this would be Karis LeVert's team. Make no mistake. Spencer Dinwiddie would not be taking the last shot. It would be Karis LeVert if they were both on the floor at the same time. Karis has that, and I hate to be stupid here, but the eye of the tiger. You know, my nickname is Creed, so I grew up loving Apollo Creed. I have the shorts. Not only do I have the boxing shorts, I have swimming trunks now.
I just had a Apollo Creed shirt on for 4th of July from Roosevelt.
See, there you go. But I wanted that shirt. I had it. I was going to order it, and I didn't. And I should have. But I got the results, the American flag ones that he wore in the first fight. But yeah, man, he like I said before, I just want to reiterate it. He exemplifies everything that Sean Marks and Kenny Atkinson, now no longer with the team, but he exemplifies everything that they wanted to do in the rebuild of this team. And think where this team is, guys. 2015, 2016, Lionel Hollins goes bye-bye, okay? Kenny comes in 2016, 2017. So we're talking 4 seasons. This is almost a complete turnaround. And that's how they got KD and Kyrie over here. You know, the culture, everything else, the Brooklyn way. Everybody was laughing at them, but look at the Nets now. Look at the Nets now. And they are on the precipice of doing something extremely special next year. So back to your point, Keith, about being patient just a little bit more. I mean, the fans who are with this team for the long run, they remember 2009, 2010, that 12-70 record. You know, I filled in for Jessica Taff a lot in that locker room. And there's only so many times you could ask Brooke Lopez how disappointing. You saw it, but I'll tell you this. I want to bring him up because Belo, you could say what you want about that guy. He's the leading scorer in Nets franchise history. Love him or hate him, as soon as that game was over, he was in front of his locker, win or loss, ready to talk to the media, and he was always there, front and center, and he took it on the chin.
That's the Yankee way. That's how that's the Yankee way.
He was, and people might give me some crap for this, but he was Jeter, man. He just owned up to everything, and he answered for everybody. There were nights where everybody ghosted, but Brooke was there in his locker. He never went to the shower first. He sat in front of his locker, still had his uniform on, had his head in his hands. He would pick his head up, and he would do the interview, and he'd answer every question. I have nothing but respect for that guy. Yes, absolutely.
He's the captain, and I use those words very, very, very specifically. The last thing I'll say about Karis LeVert, you guys hit it on a basketball point. I'm just going to talk about culture-wise. As Nets fans, we all want to have some of that likability, some of that feeling from that team that we had in the playoffs last year, where it was, you know, all homegrown, all these players that we poached from the second round of the 2014 draft. We kind of want to have that vibe, and Karis brings that vibe, but he brings that vibe as a star. I think when you look at all of like the past dynasties that we've had, every dynasty has had at least one of those homegrown players. You look, you know, if you look at the Warriors, they had two. They had Steph, they had Clay. If you look at the Heat, they had D Wade. All of these teams have these homegrown players, and I think we need to have that. And I think Karis is that homegrown star that we can make great use of. But now we're going to move in to our final segment, What's On. In this segment, Chris, basically what we do is we just tell the fans what to watch, what's on TV, what movies to watch, what's going on. It doesn't have to be basketball related, can be about anything. So, Keith, I'll let you lead off. What's on?
Yeah, hopefully I can get this podcast edited and out tonight, Wednesday. But I'm pretty sure this program you'll be able to find even after today. I don't think it's like a one-time live thing. So Kyrie Irving, Kyrie Irving, Brooklyn Nets, he's got a TV program coming out tonight, basically just shining more light, which is unfortunate that we even have to put this much attention on it. Shining more light on the death of Breonna Taylor. She's a young EMT who was shot in the middle of the night by police that entered her home with a no-knock warrant. And these officers haven't been prosecuted yet. This happened in March. Here we are in July. But this is going to come on tonight. And what's the name of the channel? It's called Say Her Name, Breonna Taylor, 7 p.m. tonight. It's on the Players TV Digital and Broadcast Network. I think if you search it on YouTube, it'll come up. I'm sure the link will be out there on Twitter tonight. And it shouldn't be hard to find if you want to tune in. Players TV launched in March on Samsung TV. I think it's like on Samsung TV. I have it. I think it's channel 1116. But I'm interested to see what they do. I think Common, the rapper, is involved and some other prominent people. But this is a situation where, you know, it's just unfortunate. It just plays into everything else. That the system is messed up, wrong. This person was an EMT sleeping in their house. When we talk about Black Lives Matter, Black people deserve to be able to sleep in the comfort of their own homes without someone barging in and potentially shooting into their house or whatever and actually taking a life. So if you're looking for something to watch tonight, and even if you're not looking for something to watch, I think it's something to support, and it's good to get as many eyes and ears and attention on this as possible.
Entered the wrong home with a no-knock warrant.
Right. What did I speak wrong?
Yeah. No, you just said that she entered her home with a no-knock warrant. They entered
the wrong home. Right. So
with a no-knock warrant, but it wasn't the home that they had the warrant for.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to go next, and I'm going to make it a little more basketball related. You know, we always have Keith go first, and Keith always drops these massive like truth bombs on us. He did last week. He did it again. And now I'm over here, like last week I said Hamilton. Now, like it's always like something like way less serious.
Before you go, I tried to watch Hamilton. I mean, I know people love it, but like my fiance and I sat down to watch it. We made it not even to 20 minutes, and we were like, my thing is like I can't get the full story through like raps, through lyrics. Like I was waiting for them to stop and actually like have the play and have lines and dialogue. I'm like, wait, the whole thing is like song for 2 hours and 20 minutes. I didn't finish it, but I mean, I did take your recommendation to watch it on Disney Plus, but I didn't last longer than like 18 minutes.
Here's the thing. You know, you talked about me maybe being a radio and TV major. I still have a little bit of that history major in me, so that Hamilton's a little bit like porn to me. But you gotta know what the background is, I think is important. But at the end of the day, I took your recommendation too. I gave, you know, my country some thought. I thought about everything that was going on, you know, what I stand for, what the flag stands for, and all these things. And as much as I always come with the slightly less serious recommendations like I'm going to right now, it's important to do what Keith says. It's important to watch these things. It's important to take time to think about these things, because if you don't, then you're a part of the problem. On that very somber note, it was on ESPN a little while ago, LeBron's, it was Backstory, The Decision. It was on ESPN a couple Sundays ago. It's still on. If you have ESPN Plus, you can definitely watch it. I think it should be on demand, but it gives some backstory onto the decision. There's some Nets talk in there, how Jay-Z influenced the decision a little bit, how the decision got so much hate from the commissioner's office. So it's very interesting as a basketball fan, definitely interesting as just a LeBron fan, or even just as someone who's interested in like the personal aspect of everything that went on with that. All right, Chris, do you have anything?
I can't follow either one of those. And pretty much, guys, I have to keep two young girls entertained with activities in a pandemic. So I'm not really in tune with the TV right now, but Keith, I will definitely try to find what you brought up with Kyrie and Common. I misspoke earlier. I thought it was coming through IG. I guess I thought wrong, but
it might be on multiple platforms.
Yeah.
But I know YouTube specifically, and then Samsung TV.
Okay.
They should stream it everywhere you could possibly stream it.
Well,
and then,
if it's on YouTube, it's real easy.
Yeah, you can watch it on your phone. And you just made me think of something. Common was used by the Yes Network in the I'm Going with Brooklyn. Like, Common was our guy in the commercials this year. Like, you know, coming up, the Nets are playing the Wizards. You got Common on the court at the Barclays Center saying, I'm going with Brooklyn. So there's two Brooklyn Nets tie-ins to watch in this program tonight.
But if you guys haven't watched Ozark yet, get on that.
Oh, of course. I've seen every episode of Ozark. It's great.
Have to.
It's ridiculous, but it's great.
Yeah, it is ridiculous, but you have to watch it.
All right, boys, let's close this one out. Had a great time today with Chris Shearn. A lot of good talk, a lot of serious talk. So, Chris, if you can tell everyone where to follow you at. I know you had some negative words about Twitter, but you do have a Twitter. You have a little bit of a following. You put out good content. I believe you put your pinned tweet is one of your daughter hitting a dinger, so you have to love that. Where can we follow you at?
Actually, you could follow me on Twitter at Chris Shearn. Yes, it's my name, and then the Yes Network is just YES though. Instagram, I'm keeping the close friends and family, so I'm not giving that out. Keith, you're part of that family, so you are invited. But I'm trying to keep that just to people I know and people that I've actually seen in my life. Yeah. And just to piggyback on what you led to me with, Hudson, I should have led with this first, but you said important conversation, and that's what we need to do every day. Have conversations and come together and not further divide. I mean, that's what this is about. It's talking amongst one another, and it's all coming to one common goal. And if we have to fight for it, we have to fight for it. But at least ears are opening now, and people are starting to talk.
Well, it's hard to follow that. You have been an absolutely phenomenal guest today. For all those who are listening, give him a follow. Don't forget to follow at not on Instagram. No, not on Instagram. Don't forget to follow at Talkin Nets on Twitter and Instagram. We're always putting out content, always doing our thing there. You can find me at Hudson Flynn _ on Instagram and Twitter. And Keith, where can they follow you at?
You can find me at Keith _McPherson on Twitter. You can find me at Keith McPherson, one word, on Instagram, my first and last name. Don't follow me if you don't want the hard truth. Don't follow me if you don't want someone that is completely authentic, real, and comfortable in their own skin. I've lost some followers during these last 3 months, but I've replaced them with new people. So if you want to follow me, come along for the ride. I'm a Yankee fan. I'm a Nets fan. I'm into football too, but my football team I don't really know about right now. Keith McPherson on Instagram, Twitter, everywhere else.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Hudson, one more thing. Good luck in school. Do your work.
Got like
study
a month
hard
till you go back.
Yeah, study
I know.
hard.
I'll be back there.
And Keith, keep doing what you do. Just like
I
told you,
will.
just like I told you on Instagram. Just keep doing what you do.
I appreciate that. Chris reached out to me before some of my friends and family saying, keep doing exactly what you're doing. Speak. People need to hear you. And that was a big boost for me. I actually reached out to, some of the other people that I've connected with at the Yes Network. And like I said, I feel like the people that I've met at the Yes Network are like mentors to me. Josh Isaac, Kevin Sullivan, Jonathan Ziegler, like they've done so much for me so quickly. They're all solid people, good guys. I know that they echo the type of stuff that I've been putting out. And
so are you. And that's what people have to understand. And that's how we move forward. Yeah. And that's what people have to come to realize. You're just trying to open people's minds and ears and eyes. And we're with you.
It's great.
Absolutely.
What else we got? Make sure you guys leave a voicemail. You guys heard John's voicemail. You can literally get on the pod by leaving a voicemail. Don't call and test out whether the voicemail works. It works. You'll hear a little message. Leave your voicemail, your name, and we'll put you on the pod.
Absolutely. Follow us. Follow Chris. Not on Instagram. He doesn't want you there. Follow Keith. He wants you there as long as you're not a clown. Keith, close us out. Give us a Let's Go Nets.
And a subscribe, rate, and review the pod. This was a great pod. I can't wait to edit this and clip it up. We need some reviews. It helps us just look better out there. Subscribe to the pod, rate the pod, write us a review. We'll see you next Thursday. Let's go Nets. Brooklyn.